Hey, I'm Gregory. Thanks for joining me. This is 1 in 20 D&D. And today, for D&D Daily number 5, I got through a work week of 5 days, and this is my fifth episode of D&D Daily, whatever this is. So today I'm talking about a slightly different role-playing game than Dungeons and Dragons. I will talk a little bit about role-playing games in general, and specifically, of course, Dungeons and Dragons, because that's my favorite. However, I'm going to start by talking primarily about BattleTech RPG, because tonight, let's get the glare off of there. There it is. A Time of War Quickstart rules. I picked this up like 5 or 6 years ago at the game shop I was going to on the regular to play back then D&D 4E, which was fun. And this was so I picked that up. But we also played on a tabletop. We actually played BattleTech on a tabletop, and it was really fun with little miniatures, a big map, the whole thing. We had a real good time with that, and we with Roll20 and how that lets us play virtually. Now that we've all moved literally like all over the country and all over the world, it allows us to still hang out as buddies and play these tabletop games. So tonight we're playing BattleTech, and this is our own modified version of BattleTech. Brett, our GM, does a phenomenal job of homebrewing and just streamlining the rule sets. And by doing that, he makes it his own. It makes it easier for him to run the game, which is really cool. So I'm going to give a quick little bit. We have a session recorded in the can, as they say in the industry. Our first session, which was kind of like a session 0, because we sort of set the stage, met the characters, or some of them anyway, and did a trial run with how the actual game plays. So let me give you a little bit here. I'm going to show you something. And what you see here is now, this is our company, our unit. Our mercenary unit. So this is the organization of our mercenary unit. We are a bunch of new recruits that joined a mercenary unit that was already established. It was small, but it was looking to expand. So we came on so that they could create. They had some extra mechs laying around, plus 2 of us. I'll explain this in a moment. 2 of us came in with our own mechs, and they were looking to create a Bravo company of mech warriors. Now, what does that mean? So in our unit, we are the Bratva, the Brotherhood in Russian. This is our mercenary unit. In this mercenary unit, we have Mech Company Alpha, Mech Company Bravo, an armor company, and an infantry company. Now, the mechs are these giant robots. Again, I've talked a little bit about Mech Warrior Online, also BattleTech, the really cool strategy game you can find through Steam online. And so this is, it's this warfare simulation with these giant robots that we pilot as if it was a tank. But we also have support units like medium and heavy tanks and light tanks and assault guns. That's our armor company. We also have infantry, and they're broken down into their platoons and so forth. So what Brett did was he set this up where we have an NPC called Captain Chukov. He's in charge of our company. We make up Company Bravo. And we started out there were 5 of us, so we were a reinforced lance. And we also grabbed on, because there's going to be 6 players that kind of come and go. And so what we did is really cool, because one of the things I've struggled with in games I play, whether it's D&D, if it's Car Wars, if it's any role-playing game, Marvel Universe, whatever it is that you might play, I'm sure you run into this. If you're doing a one-shot, no problem. But when you start doing campaigns, we all have busy lives, and real-life stuff comes up. I still got this scratchy, coughy, nasty throat thing, right? So real-life things happen, especially if you have a family. You never know what's going to happen. Not everybody can show up for every game. So what Brett thought is, let's start a game where we can easily have people come in and come out. We really only need 4 players to show up, because in BattleTech, in Mech Warrior, whatever you want to call it, a lance of mechs is 4 mechs, 4 robots. So a company is made up of 3 lances, which means there are 12 mechs typically in a company. Now, sometimes they're undernumbered, sometimes they're overnumbered. A light lance would be called would be when there's 3. I think it's a light. And a reinforced lance is when there's 5 instead of the normal 4. So here's what we did. In our first game, we had 5, so that we were a reinforced lance. And what we decided to do was we just actually did a training thing where it was like 3-on-2. We just battled in against each other. It was a lot of fun. But in the game, Brett decided that our battalion commander, Major Kohler, decided he was going to do a restructure because where Alpha Company was a full company, they had 2 Vulcans, which you can see in Bravo Lance. We now have 1 in each Bravo Lance from both Mech Company Alpha and Mech Company Bravo. There were 2 Vulcans in Mech Company Alpha. He said, hey, let me give you this Vulcan. Then you can have a light mech lance and a heavy mech lance. So you can get a little more versatility. Now, I'm going to switch maps here. Oh, I'm going to say one more thing. One more thing that's cool is myself, I rolled very high. And so I got to come to the game with my own mech. And Alan, who is Crazy Ivan, or Alpha Lance's leader, Sergeant Vasiljevic. Crazy Ivan is easier. My character, Corporal Tank Kellar, is running Bravo Lance. He's running Alpha Lance. My tank came to the unit, the mercenary unit, with his own Centurion. And because that's what I rolled, and I just love the Centurion, so that's a super cool mech, and yay. And then Alan actually won our, well, spoiler alert! He won our Car Wars campaign, if you haven't watched it. He didn't win it. He just did the best consistently from game to game to game, like overall. So we say he won it because we weren't really trying to win. But he definitely did the best overall. Like most damage, most kills. He really played an awesome game of Car Wars. So he got to start out as the sort of better player, the better character, I should say, in our Battletech game. So he had his own mech, and he has a Wolverine. Wolverine is a pretty fast mech, even though it's a medium. So that goes in our Alpha Lance, leading the Alpha Lance, which are our fast attack mechs or our scout mechs. And I'm running the Bravo Lance. Centurion is like a hard hitter. Big, huge gun in the right hand, kind of a shield arm on the left, can brawl it out in hand-to-hand melee, which actually does happen in the tabletop game, or can just like hit them hard with some big weapons too. So we have a rifleman, which is our heaviest, that's actually classed as a heavy. And so I'm going to switch over to a different map here. So now on this here image, you can see, I'm giving you a little bit, so we went from our sort of mercenary unit organizational structure. That's what that little chart was. This is what it actually looks like when we play the game. You're gonna have a map. I'll zoom out in a moment to show you what the map actually kind of looks like, or might look like. But this is sort of a simple version of what are our tokens gonna look like when we play the game. You have 4 classes or weights of mechs. You have assault mechs, heavy mechs, medium, and light. You can see the color coordination helps us to very quickly pick those out on the battlefield. And I've also added in for our game these little arrows to show which way it's facing. And the red indicates that it's an enemy, and the black indicates that it is a friendly unit. Now, in that, we could always go in and change this. Like, let's say I want to change the name of this to an Atlas, which is the most quintessential of the assault mechs. And so in the game, we might actually, once we've identified a mech, might list it as an Atlas. But that's a little bit about Roll20. I'll talk more about that some other time because you might not even use Roll20. So if you do, great. If you don't, that's fine too. In the meantime, let me just put this back. Boom. And there we go. So these are the 4 classes of mechs. Enemy mechs versus our allied mechs. And we're also going to do this if there are other things like tanks and all that. They'll have their own little icons as well as we go forward. Now, we play on a hex grid. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can kind of see what a map might look like. We're going to play on a hex grid, which is a little bit different than what most D&D games are done on. Most D&D games tend to run on a square grid. It's just a slightly different play style, slightly different mechanics in movement, and so forth. So, there you go. So in here, like, our mechs actually have to turn. Like, we have to stop and turn like you're driving a tank. So it's easier to figure that out on a hex grid. So there you go. So, man, I can't wait for us to play this game. I'm just super excited about tonight. Enough about BattleTech. Let's talk about some D&D. So I finally started I restarted with Adventure Zone as I promised. Man, the Macarola boys and their dad they're awesome. They're hysterically funny. I got through their session 1. I had previously listened to it, but I sort of I couldn't remember much of it, so I wanted to refresh my memory to restart listening to it. Super funny. If you really dig it, especially if you're just into listening to stuff, fabulous podcast to just check them out. I totally recommend them. With Dice Camera Action, I really dig them as well. And of course, I mean, they're just awesome players. It's a fun game. Chris Perkins is an incredible DM. They're on session 123, I think, and I'm 112. So I'm 11-ish sessions behind. I will try to catch up because I really do enjoy that show, and I'm super excited to see where they go this year and what they get into and so forth. And of course, Critical Role. Man, I only watched about not even half the session. Sometimes it takes me a little while to get through all of it, but I will certainly finish it over the weekend. Wow. I mean, they got into some combat right at the top of the session. Super duper fun. I look forward to finishing that. Yesterday, instead of listening to that, I did listen to it in the morning, but when I also put a little more effort into getting back into Adventure Zone. So I'll do both of those this weekend. Hey, what do you guys listen to? What do you watch? What do you play? What do you like? What are you interested in? What do you want to know about? You got any questions? Send them at me. I appreciate you stopping in here. I usually say keep rolling 20s, but since tonight we're playing BattleTech and it's a D6 based game, I'm going to say keep rolling 6s.